Hello everyone, Lex Gray here. Welcome back to another entry. Today we are exploring Legend of Esper, Episode 2. Let's begin. So, great news. I will be using Chronica Feudalis for this arc, at least Episode 2 and on. Took me some time to get used to it. It's a slightly different system, but it does have traits of Fate, Savage Worlds, and a dice pull mechanic, which I'm not used to. So, that begs the question, what dice roller should I use? Because I was using the B-Dice media browser plugin through OBS to roll the dice, but the dice were always predetermined based on some code. So I have to use new dice because this game has all the different skill dice associated with each skill. And I have my character sheets here for Hulf and Mortar. And so the dice tray will be this one. This is just a web app, or it's an Apple app called Mighty Dice. It's the best one I can find, really, in my opinion, to roll dice. So, for example, if we have a skill of a d6, an aspect of a d8, and a tool of a d4, we roll it, and if it's a task, typically over the default target number of 4, in this case we have 2 successes. If we're rolling against an enemy, I'll roll basically the dice that they defend on. If we're attacking an enemy, I'll roll our skill, like strike, a sword die, which would be d8 or 2d6s, and then an aspect if we're using one. I'll save the d8. We roll, and then if they're defending, I jot down these results here, and I'll roll their defend, so their skill of fend, which would be d6. Maybe they have some armor, the d8, and that's it. No aspect. I'll roll this. I would note this detail, and my dice, if they beat or exceed, they match or exceed, it's a success. So again, it's a different system, kind of has your traditional initiative and combat sequence, but it's more like Saints. So it will take me some time, and I would appreciate, as always, your patience with these videos. So at the moment, right now, Wolf and Mortar are on top of the roof at the library. They are about to seek, they basically want to get the best reception for their little magical radio and call their father to give him the great news and not the bad news that there is a potentially an evil tyrant, magical bad guy that's flying in your direction and probably going to cause havoc. But we don't know exactly what the master is doing. So while they're doing that, they spot Jory, out of all people, talking with this guy, King Jenkins Greytop III. And because of that, it's a complication. Why are they meeting? Well, I actually don't know yet. I don't have any predetermined ideas. I want to roll for it. So let's focus first on the most crucial aspect, and that is Mortar and Hulf on the rooftop. They got interrupted seeing Jory. So how do they react to this? Well, they can crouch and spy. They can try to listen in. That would require a roll. So based on these two characters, as I was adapting both these characters to Chronica, I made Hulf to be more of a ranger, while Mortar is more of the outlaw. Because there are mentors you can use. There's 3 mentors when you make characters, and you choose. They're basically backgrounds, classes, if you want to go that deep. So Hulf, I think, is going to, because he's the older brother, so I believe Hulf is going to take point here, and they're going to crouch and listen in as to what's going on between this guy and Jory. What are they talking about? Why would Jory be meeting with such a high profile figure in Haldreth, out in the open? Now, we don't know. This is actually, we don't know contextually if Jory is using his identity, concealing magic, or bending, as I call it now, to cover his real identity. Because he is the leader of the Arcane. He is a wanted felon. He is a enemy of the archives and most likely the Haldreth people itself. So if he is masking himself with his Jory identity, then he doesn't have anything to be worried about. He's speaking to Jenkins out in the open, after all. I'm going to say yes, he does have his identity concealed. And Jory is covering his face up with a younger version, perhaps, of himself. Because Jory is actually, looks like, let's see, where does Jory sit in my list here? That's Jory. That's what it looks like when he is of his correct age. But I believe his identity, maybe he can de-age himself to be younger, modify his age based on that bending ability. But as I'm developing the bending aspect in this world, where it's not necessarily magic, it's a reality bending ability, it does take away from your life force. So it does shorten your lifespan. I don't think anyone knows that, because we're still very young into this Escabur landscape, the world of Esper. It's still a very young, settling community of people. The inhabitants of Escobar are still within 100 years of time as we approach the 80-year mark, or we are within the 80-year mark, because again, we're right about here, all in this timeline here. So we're going to do our first skill roll for this moment. And basically what Holf is trying to do is listen in on what these two are talking about. So we can assume that Holf never told anybody of Jory's true identity after it was revealed. I believe part of the truce was not to convey his identity. Like, basically, maybe a villain of Batman finds out and they have some truce, and he never tells anybody that's Bruce Wayne. Something like that. So, let's see what skill we have. To listen in, it'll be, I think, sense. Now, for our character Holf and Mortar, I have a dice pool here of 6 total ardor points, as they call it. I believe that's pronounced ardor points. It's going to be a cumulative pool between the two characters. So there's 6 cats in here. Still using our trustworthy bottle caps, Nuka-Cola caps. Not a sponsor. So forgot 6. And when you spend that, you can invoke an aspect. Now, Holf has an aspect I chose for him called Eye of the Hawk, which mostly has to do with his sight. He does have heightened awareness, just based on his travels and skilled training. So I might be able to use that. All right, so target number is 4 as always. We're going to use the Sense skill, which is a D6. There are no items here that can really help. So let's go to our dice, and we're going to do a D6. I'm going to spend an Ardor point, a Benny, to use Eyes of a Hawk, so he can also visually engage with, maybe read lips with them all. So that's a D8. All your aspects typically start at a D8. Anything else that helps? No. Now, also, I don't know if this is in the game. I'm just adding this rule. I'm going to include Mortar will be assisting in this. Now, he doesn't have any aspects that help here. His aspects are agile, quick-witted, steady hands. While information for you guys, Holf aspects are daring, Eye of the Hawk, and tactical mind. I moved tactical from Mortar to Holf. Now, I'm going to also include the sense skill of Mortar. So that adds 2d6 in this pool. So, this is a joint effort. You cannot roll more than your total vigor, which is essentially your HP, or maybe stamina, depending on how you want to see it. So we have 3 dice total for this roll. We're trying to listen in visually and audibly, hear what they're talking about. We're not too far. Surprisingly, the king and Jory are right outside the library doors, which I would assume perhaps the king or Jory was going to speak to the archives. Remember, Jory has spoken to the archives before, and I think Jory's hoping that Hulf hasn't spoiled his identity just yet. And so far, Hulf has kept his promise. If I didn't retcon anything by accident. Let's roll to see how this goes. Remember, target number is 4. Successes count above that 4 per die. Okay, we have 2 successes. Excellent. So 2 successes, 4 or more. What that tells me is the following. Not only can we see them crystal as day, bright, clear as day, but we can hear them just enough. And the D6 was sense. I'm assuming sense counts for all senses. And here is what they catch. Let's find out from the Oracle. We'll base it off these 2 rolls. We have 28, which is investigate. And then we have investigate 82, an enemy. Investigate an enemy. Okay, I'm going to write these down on my whiteboard. Investigate an enemy. Well, the enemy could be the archives. And the king is probably here for some very important reason. So I'm going to write down investigate an enemy. And enemy. And because of that, investigate an enemy. Because of that, I'm assuming that the king, we have to figure out what the king's business is here. So we're going to do some storytelling here. The king is from the castle Emberstock. Based on his description so far, there's not much about him that we know. So I'm going to go to his little dock. Okay, so family owns most of the land on Great Top. Oh, Great Top. Maybe, oh, I have an idea. The king wants to, there is no fee for travelers to cross through. He's been rather generous to allow travelers to cross through his land between Cornerstone and, because Cornerstone's another large settlement, and Haldreth, which is practically the capital of the entire Escabur Islands. Esper Island. So maybe he's here because he needs the money and he's getting a little greedy. And so he wants to create some kind of toll to put on anybody who comes through his land to Haldreth. So he's here to meet with the consul. Maybe he has an appointment. He called ahead of time and say, "Hey, I'm coming in. Any available openings?" And he's here to meet with the council. The problem is that's probably his reasoning to being here. So I'm going to write down the king, the council, and the toll for travelers. Now that could be the investigate role. I think we got that covered. Investigate. He's here to look for options, make a deal, strike a deal. Now the enemy could be a couple of factions here. We have the archives, we have the council. Jory is the standout here in this situation. He has been a problem for our characters, plural. So what business does he have with the king and the council? Jory's here, I believe, more so to see the archives. And perhaps Jory was on his way to speak to the archives, most likely to do something, whether it is evil or for his own gain. Perhaps he was here to catch us before we spoke to, or better yet, he got here first. So Jory got here first. I'm going to write that down because he was Mortar and Hulk for talking when they first met, when they reconnected after all these years. Jory got to the archives first. And it doesn't seem Shafa didn't mention that. So he probably spoke to Shafa, but we don't know what it was about. I think we're going to keep that out of context right now. out of this question. And Jory's business is so vague at the moment. His plans were foiled because Hulf didn't allow him to be captured and used for the Ashford. So maybe Jory was looking for Hulf, but then changed his plans. So why didn't Shafa say, "Hey, your friend Jory was looking for you"? So I don't think that would make sense for Jory to go to the archives because I missed out on the idea. Say, "Oh yeah, Jory. By the way, Jory's looking for you. Where are you?" So he's not didn't get to the archives just yet. I believe the Arcane's hideout. They have a hideout in in this area. So let's add that to the world notes about Halvard. The Arcane have has a hideout in this location. And then factions, which I actually haven't updated in a while. Shafa, Arcane, Jory. Their location. Yeah, so I was saying vaguely in Haldorf, but it is indeed Haldorf. So he's here to rendezvous with his team, but obviously that didn't. He ran into Mr. Royalty himself, King Jenkins. So let's roll for plot twist because I believe what they catch. I'm sorry this taking so long, but I'm trying to piece this together without stepping on my own feet. All right, let's roll plot to see what it's about. Remember, investigate. The king is here to do the toll thing. Enemy, and I believe that has to do with Jory, either the archive or the council. Let's see if plot twist can flesh out this idea. 3. It was all a diversion. Okay, so it was all diversion. The king was a diversion? If that's the case, then why would Jory speak to the king out in the open? Oh, Jory meeting the king is a diversion. Oh, well, yeah, that actually does seem possible. Interesting. Okay, let's throw a wrench in this. The king is meeting with Jory. Moments later, Shafa walks out. She leaves the library, and they see that too. Remember, we're still going based on my 2 successes. They hear, surprisingly, it's pretty quiet out in the area they are. It's library, that makes sense. So they hear Shafa walk up to the king. The king is with him and a couple of guards. They're just standing there. Keep an eye out. His secret service, basically. And she shakes hands with him. She says, "Welcome back. Good to see you again." Remember, Shafa's neutral. She's not good or evil. She goes where her interests are, where interests line up to. And then she shakes hands with Jory. They start talking. And Shafa expressed interest in doing a trade with the king. Makes sense. She's a collector. The king, the king's guard, Jenkins' guard, brings a box from his carriage, a crate, and hands it to Shafa. Shafa gives the king a pouch of coins. Oh, that's right. I forgot something. 1 second, guys. I almost forgot about a item, a tool that every character is given. It's a purse. It's a coin purse. Currency in this game is abstract. Your gold count's abstract. It's given a dice count, and when you want to purchase something, you roll the die of the tool of the purse against the item to see if you can afford it, and then you roll again on ammo. Same thing goes with arrows. Your quiver of arrows. You roll to see if you have enough. And so I gave you start with D4. I gave them both D6 because the characters have been around for a while now. So they've been through adventures and they probably looted a few things here and there. So D6 I gave bump up, step up from D4. Okay, so Shafa is simply there to meet the king to exchange, to make an exchange, a deal. Great. Jory is there, and because Jory at this point, with his identity concealed, he is a neutral party acquaintance of Shafa. He greets Shafa. They shake hands. Now, what do Shafa and Jory have in common? They're both collectors. And so I think that despite with all the shenanigans going on the north side, the northern island with the dragon, with that future quest about to happen, Shafa's interests are focused. She has multiple interests. She does multiple things. She focuses on local commerce, trading, collecting, information gathering. She does it all. She's the boss. She's in charge of her own faction, and she has influence practically everywhere. And so she is doing a business deal, and as she is exchanging that trade with, let's write that down. Actually, I want to keep an eye on that product that that trade they did with. Let's see, gave Shafa a crate for some coins. I'm going to bold this right here. Then we'll go to Shafa and Haldrith and put in got a crate from Jenkins, Leroy Jenkins. Oh, got a crate. There we go. We don't know what that crate is. That could be anything. It might just be a MacGuffin. So, back to my ugly mug. Now, as my time runs short here because I have work later today, trying to figure out the Jory and Shafa connection. It was all diversion. That's what we rolled earlier for pay the price or for plot twist, which does make sense. I think Jory being there is a diversion. So the fact he's there, Shafa is out of her study. She's not there. So that means the arcane are going to break in. One individual is going to break in. They didn't count on us being there. Jory, as he's speaking, I think the extra success I had was that it was a D6. That was mortar. I mean, they both have sense of D6. I won't say that was mortar because a D8 was, if I recall correctly, the aspect we drew from Hulf. So the D6 respectively was mortar. Mortar briefly sees a shadow in the corner of his eye from one rooftop nearby that jumps down. He sees it as they're listening, and then he runs over to that side. Hulf is like looking at his brother, like, where are you going? And then so Mortar looks over, and let's see if he sees anything. This will be another skill roll. So we're rolling. He is quick-witted, so I will most likely use that aspect. But what would require for him to quickly see someone and I think sneak. So D6 sneak. Because he's going to run over to and see who that was. Quick-witted. So we're doing a D8. I'm buying that with an arbor point. So we're doing a D8 and a D6. Practically the same thing. Here we go. Oh, nice. 2 successes. 4 is the usual standard. Yeah. Okay, so he's able to see who it is. It's a robed individual. And Mortar has not had experience with the arcane before. No, he has not. So he does not recognize the emblem on the back or on the shoulder or something. But he sees an emblem, as usual, like a little marker. And then the shadow figure goes into underneath him, so into the building through a back door or something, through a broken window. And so Hulf sneaks over, says, "What are you doing?" And Mortar says, I just saw someone jump off this roof here and sneak in into the library." Hulf says, "Well, did you get a good look?" He said, "I saw the emblem. They had an emblem on their patch." Hulf asked, "Do you know what it looked? Can you describe the emblem?" Mortar's like, "Yeah, it was something dark side." And Hulf has experience with the emblem, with the arcane. He has run into them multiple times. And he goes, "Jory, the arcane is here." And Mortar's like, "The arcane?" Wolf's like, "Yeah, we had a run in. Long story." So Jory tugs him over to come back and sneak over. And as he look over to see Shafa, the king, and Jory's gone. He left. He's gone. Shafa is just kind of chit-chatting with the king. So I don't think the king is really like a major player here in what's happening in the library. He's just a circumstance that entered the picture. So he's there on his own little, on his own will, on his own time, doing something on his own little story. So that's his business. And Shafa has some, indirect connection to it. So they're chatting. So Wolf and Mortar, they have the stone. Is like, what do we do? Like, do we call out? Or can we call father? Wolf is like, he's undecided. He doesn't know what to do because Shafa is an ally at this point. She has helped them, and they have helped her. So Wolf is like, okay, I'll go down and check. You try to call father and tell him about me. And Moore's like, are you sure? Do you need help? I was like, I got this. So Holf goes back downstairs. Moore is going to use the stone to signal for his father. So Mortar is going to attempt. I mean, I don't really know what skills to qualify for to trying to use a bendable item. It could be maybe. I think because let's call it this. I'm going to add an aspect here. Dark bending is an aspect. A D8. I'm gonna give it to both characters. Anybody who has been exposed to the Dark Realms portal for some time naturally has this ability. Dark bending. Again, it's the magic of my world here, and it's not necessarily it's not magic per se, but it's a reality bending ability. So when you're using the stone, you have to be capable of doing something like that. So we're invoking another arbor point to use this ability. So let's go to the dice, and this is a D8. The D4 is the standard difficulty. Here we go. Does it work? He holds a stone, and I think the stone's quirk was you need to tell a lie or something about that. So he says, "My father's bald" or something, which he's not. So roll the dice, and it's a success. Okay, it's a standard single success. All right. So he calls out into the stone, and moments later, there's dial tone. You hear it ringing, and his father goes, "Mortar, I heard your voice. Is that you?" And Mortar's like, "Yes, it's me, father. I'm okay. I'm in Holders right now. Are you all right? How's mother?" So I said, "Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. Did you find him?" Laura's like, "Yes, I did. Father, he's alive." And you can hear him like put the stone down, and he starts to cry, and he starts to kind of maybe claps, and he laughs with excitement. "You found him! You found him! Well done, son. Well done. How is he? What's he look like?" He says he looks taller than me. He blah 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 describes him. He says, "Father, there is something." Now he's not supposed to tell about the dragon, but he's kind of talking about what's happening in the isolated area, in the area itself. He says, "Father, there's some business we're handling here. We're gonna do our best to get back to Corwood in hopefully a week's time. But there's stuff happening here. I cannot say anything more, but just please remember that we are both safe, and we'll do our best to get back in time to see you and mother." And then Damon's like, "Okay, thank you so much, son, for the information. I'll be here. Please be careful." And then the stone basically just turns off. It's off. That's all. It can only be used like once a week. I think I gave myself that quirk. So the stone turns off, and he puts it back in his pocket. So right now, Mortar has the stone, a magic stone, and I should have given it a dice item. I was still thinking of fate rules. So I believe the stone is probably just a d6. So my apologies, I forgot to include a skill roll, but nevertheless, we did roll with the aspect to activate it. So, okay. I think that's it for Mortar's part of the story here. Now, Hof is going downstairs. We're going to roll a skill here for him to sneak up and find that arcane member. And Jory's gone too. We don't know where Jory is. The King Schaefer outside. So sneak. Holf is not the best at sneaking. I didn't give him a skill. He has a default D4. And I don't recall if you can use multiple skills for rolls. I could look at the book, but I'm going to improvise here and basically use I'm going to invoke Tactical Mind for one Benny, one Ardor point for a D8. So let's go. We have our dice here. The D8's already there. Okay, we have D8. And Sneak is a D4. He's looking around. He's trying to find this. Well, actually, you know what? Hunt would be applicable here. His Hunt is D6. So let's use Hunt. All right, we have everything. And then any items that would qualify for... I don't think he has attack yet. He's just looking. So here we go. I could include a die for the enemy, but I'm going to just do 4 for now. 4 or higher. Oh, okay, so the D6, which was Hunt, is 1 success. Okay. He's downstairs. He is allowed to walk about the cabin, so the arcane lets him through. He is trying to keep his voice down, and he's entering the lower area of the arcane hallway with all the rooms, and then Schaefer's office is closed off. But he sees that there's not a lot of guards around. Now, actually, let's find out how the arcane spy broke in and what he did. Did he do this stealthily, like a sleuth, or did he knock out some of the guards for the archives? I think that's a question for the Oracle. We're definitely going to increase the chaos rank here. So we're looking, I think, how the archive or the arcane has been working. They're a mixture of scouts and thieves. So I'm going to say somewhat likely that they have been knocking out a few of the guards. Somewhat likely. Let's roll for it. 60 is a yes. Okay, so they get downstairs. Holf gets to the stairwell that goes down, and there's a guy who's knocked out at the bottom. The door's cracked open. He gets through, he steps over the guy, checks him, he's unconscious. The lady's not there, she's somewhere else. And there's another guard that is knocked out. Um, that is knocked out near the door of Schaefer's office, but her door is closed. It's enchanted lock, or it's not. It's bended to be locked. It's lock bent, not physically bent. Magic. It's not. Can't get through. So there's a door cracked open to the left of her office that has a label. Um, Artifacts maybe. It says something regarding artifacts. So he looks inside and he sees someone rummaging through some boxes, some crates, and again shelves. Everything's nicely organized, and so we have to sneak in to surprise this individual. So let's go back to our dice tray. Another skill roll. He is daring. That's a D8. But I want to save some of my points, even though my session could be ending here very shortly. I'm going to spend a fate point for Tactical Mind so he can plan his attack on this arcane intruder and use Sneak so he can sneak up on him. So that'll be a D8 and a D4, unfortunately, not a D6. So here we go. He's going to sneak up on the guy. Rolling 5. Okay, that's 1 success. All right, I'll take it. He sneaks up on the individual. Close the door behind him, and sneaks up with the blade to his back. And the arcane individual stops, rummaging through the boxes. Holf says, let's go back to my face here. Holf says, Arcane, what are you doing here? The spy turns around, looks back, and you can kind of see his face covered by the robe, by the hood. He says, you shouldn't be here right now. And then Holf says, yeah, well, neither should you. What are you doing here? Does Joy know you're here? And then Arcane guy says, it's not your business. You are messing with things you cannot comprehend. And then he tries to quickly spin around or grab the knife or do something. So he tries to headbutt him. So basically, we are in a conflict here. Now, for conflict, definitely using the whiteboard for this. Mortar's not included. He's sold separately upstairs. And so we're going to use this board here. I'm going to be giving him a ranking of... I did this for Savage Worlds. I summed up him with 1 die. A D6 of difficulty. So he is a simple character. Or a... there are different ranks. An agent, I think it's called. Agents have I believe, a 2 vigor rating. So there are different levels of, because like in Savage Worlds you have wild cards and you have extras. That's it. It's like three, um, yeah, three and then one for health. So for this one, fighting enemies, playing characters, we have five. Trying to find the page. I wish I could show you guys, but agents, those are loyal. They have two. Simple have one. Antagonist mentors have three. All right. So he's an agent. And so I'm going to write down agent, and then we'll go to my dice because there'll be a lot of dice tray here. A lot of dice rolling. There we go. Agent. He has two boxes, two stress boxes, if you want to still consider this a fate rules. And then he's a D6 for everything he does. D6 difficulty rank. I think that's really it. Now, we're going to do a competitive roll for, this will be, I think, either strike or, let me see if I can do some quick research. Okay, so the roll initiative, if you're on foot, on solid terrain, you roll dash. So my dash for Hulf is a D6. The other character's dash is also a D6. So because the dice are the same here, the one on the right is going to be the enemy. The one on the left is Hulf. So rolling for this, and I could use a aspect here, or I could use a weapon. So maybe, because we had the blade drawn on, that gives us an advantage. So I'm going to include a D4 with this initiative roll. So here we go. Who goes first? Oh, we do. Remember the D? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, they do. Okay, so it's a competitive roll. It's whoever's higher. So they roll first. So they go first. They're able to. We get distracted by something and they strike first. So they attack us with a D6. Okay, and that's going to be basically their strike with their weapon. So I'm going to say their weapon. So their skill rolls are all D6s. Their weapon is going to be a D. Let's see, what's competitive? My blade's 4. I have a short sword, D6. I'm going to say a D4. All right, so they're attacking with a D4 and a D6. We roll. Okay, so their result was uh, a total of 6. Now, is it the total? I think it is. The total was 6. And us, we roll with our to defend. Now, to defend, we are basically using fend with a D6. We're also using our weapon blade as a parry. I believe I'm doing that right, and I hope I am. So D4, because we had the blade drawn. So here we go. We're trying to beat 6, I believe. 4, we did not beat that in time. So we lost the roll. So basically, we take one vigor. Okay? And now we then attack. It's our turn. So they attacked, we defended. I'm sorry. Uh, they attacked, we defended, we failed. Now it's our turn. We attack them. Okay, so we have to attack with strike, which is a D4. It's pretty bad, actually. But our short sword is a D6. But we had the D4 originally, the blade, so we cannot. We can do a free action, but because I believe we're in such a confined space, we have to go with what we have. Now, I want to invoke daring aspect for some strategy or for some risk. So we're spending a fate point or a ardor point to roll a D8. Here we go. Our total is going to be, looks like it's 10 total. And then the enemy defends with his D6, and his weapon of a D4. Here we go. 8. That is a fail, which means they take a stress. They take an arbor damage. Okay. Now it's the agent's turn to attack. And it will be the same D6, D4. Here we go. They're attacking us. A 5. All right. And now we are going to defend ourselves. So that will be fend with D6 and the weapon as a parry for D4, the blade. Here we go. No aspect for this one, defending. 5. That is a, if you match, I think you do block it. Or let me check the rules real quick. I'm going to pause the video. So if it's equal to, it is a fail. So we unfortunately get another injury. So, but what I can do is take an aspect for like a cut arm to take away that arbor point. So I'm going to take away that arbor point and add an aspect called cut arm with a star to signify that it is actually an injury. All right. Now, it's our turn. So, we fail that defense. Now we're going to strike back with our D4 and our D6. But we're going to use our short sword this time. So D6. So here we go. We're rolling. 6. Okay. Now the agent will defend with his D6 skill and his D4 blade. If I'm doing that right, because I don't think I am doing that right. But again, I'm kind of improvising the moment. Let's roll for it. That's going to be 4. That's a fail. Okay, so he takes his last vigor and he is defeated. Now, how do we defeat him? I believe we're not... Well, okay. So we are, we have one vigor taken. And that means as we stab him, Hulf is, I think he's just brutal enough to stab the guy, and he falls over. And he drops an item. Let's see what the item is. He had an item in his pouch, and he drops it. Let's go to our oracles and see what exactly what it was. $86. Locate. 7. Locate survival. Okay, well, interesting. It was a scroll. A scroll that was roped, tied up with a rope, a little tie. And so as he's standing over the body, he's holding the scroll, and then suddenly the door opens up, and Shafa is standing right there with the weapon drawn. And Hulf is right there with the scroll in his hand, kind of kneeling over the intruder's body. And that's where I'll end the scene. So, notes for myself in the next video, and for you guys. Mortar is on the roof. He just called out Damon, so Damon knows that Hulf is alive. Thank goodness. Hulf just dealt with an intruder in the archives, in some kind of storage room with scrolls. Shafa just walked in and caught us in the act, post-mortem. And then that means the king has finished talking with Shafa. We don't know where Jory is either. So those are the current standing issues. And I think your vigor can heal itself, but we have a wound. So I'm taking off that vigor. And I believe that's it. So I think that's how combat works. Not bad. I enjoyed it this episode. I hope you guys did too. For now, I have to go. So, as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.